Hey everybody. So today we're going to be talking about jazz and the Black Arts movement and kind of how those two things were really intertwined with each other. So jazz, like any other form of music, had evolved since its birth. And during the late 50s and the 60s, there was this other subgenre that was coming in, this new form of jazz, which was called a few things. It's been called free jazz, avant-garde jazz, as well as the new thing. And this was really a form of jazz that focused more on improvisation rather than like the traditional classic European influence from before. They were really trying to get away from that. And that meant that even things such as like traditional scales and melody, harmony, all those things were kind of pushed aside in favor of this music that was really more about the creation of the music than the end product itself. And this was because I think these musicians, they really wanted to be viewed as artists rather than as entertainers, because there was this idea that these popular jazz musicians were just entertainers and they wanted to be seen as something more than that. Now, because this kind of does sound a lot like stuff that was parallel to the Black Arts movement, there were a lot of musicians that had aligned with that movement as well. So over here we have Marion Brown, and he was a saxophonist. And then here we have Sun Ra, who was a really interesting dude. He had all these elaborate costumes for his performances, and he talked about his music being able to take people to other dimensions, and he wrote sci-fi poetry, and he was just like kind of out there, but it sounds really cool. And then there were others as well, like Archie Shepp, and then arguably the most famous of all of these musicians that had aligned themselves with the Black Arts movement, even though he wasn't very active politically, was John Coltrane. Now, he, as I said, he was really kind of quiet on the politics side of it, but he was extremely influential to artists and poets and writers throughout the Black Arts movement, and even today, he's still a pretty influential guy, pretty much a household name when it comes to jazz. And back then he was kind of looked at as this hero and like the epitome of Black masculinity. So he was super, super influential. And in this picture, he's actually shown with Amiri Baraka, who we've talked about him before, as far as him being a poet and a writer. He was part of the Beat Generation. We've talked about that. But he also really, really, really liked jazz and actually theorized on it a lot. He wrote a lot of things for magazines. He wrote profiles of artists that were shown in Metronome or Downbeat. And sometimes some of the things that he said would kind of alienate white fans. It seemed to them as though he was putting them down for liking jazz music, as though almost they shouldn't. So that was just kind of an interesting thing to note, especially as we go into looking at his book, Blues People. So he wrote Blues People in 1963. He was asked to submit an outline for it. And it ended up being published, as I said, in 1963. And basically in this book, he is theorizing the possibility that all of jazz music was directly related to the Black sociocultural standing at the time, and that the way of expressing that through music ended up being jazz. And so he really kind of cut out any outside influence or especially from white jazz musicians, which some critics really disagreed with him on. Now, I'm not sure whether or not that idea is right or wrong, because, I mean, there were a lot of white influential jazz musicians, but I don't know if I have the experience to say, or if any of us really does, but that is one thing that I would really like to discuss. And that is basically my presentation here. I really hope that you guys found something interesting about it. I can't wait to see your answers to the discussion questions below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.